Greedfall, right? Greedfall is this RPG, fantasy RPG, which is coming out from a developer called Spiders, which is a small French indie developer. It's been on my radar for months now. There's a YouTube channel called Click for Gameplay, which focuses, that's where I found out about Outward also. They just totally focus. It's one guy, he just totally focuses on like sort of a little bit out of the way, smaller RPGs. That's where I picked up the term Eurojank. I'm sure he didn't invent it, but that's the first time I'd ever heard it. And it's sort of like all of those AA games that have like AAA ambition, but they don't quite have the budget to put together that kind of polish. And so I've kind of become really interested in those games. Like, I think Kingdom Come Deliverance, which I loved from last year, is one of those games. I honestly think The Outer Worlds is technically going to be more AA than AAA. And so Greedfall, it kind of seems like it's shaping up. It's starting to get a lot of steam, and it kind of feels like it's going to be the darling of that sort of subgenre of RPGs. And so because of that, I'm like, well, this studio, Spiders, has made a lot of games, and apparently they've all been that way. And I just kept getting more and more curious about some of the other games that they've done. The most recent game that they've done came out in 2016. It's called Technomancer. And Caitie, I fucking love this game. It's gone from the point. Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's not even just like, oh, this isn't that bad, or I really like it. It's gone from like to love. It's pushing from I love this game to this game is starting to force its way into like the pantheon. Ooh. Like this is, in my opinion, this is the spiritual successor to Knights of the Old Republic.
Wow.
I absolutely agree that the technical stuff is definitely there. There are absolutely moments when the story just kind of takes these weird drops in quality, or the acting, or there's some one-off characters where you just go, Jesus, that's a really cliche character or whatever. Okay, fine. That's like 15% of the game at best. I think it's just hugely overstated. And the rest of it, to me, it's like, this is not okay RPG content. This is grade A, top tier, branching storyline, player-driven, 2, 3, 4 different ways to end certain quests, characters that can live or die and come back or not come back later on in the story based on your choices. I don't want to spoil anything for people, because I really think if you like science fiction RPGs, you should like pass go, collect $200, like go play this game. But multiple instances of your companions living or dying, perhaps leaving when you didn't expect them to leave. I don't want to say betrayal, but maybe there's some of that too. It's great. I mean, it's everything that Bioware fans really love. I honestly think it's a little bit more, I don't want to say Baldur's Gate, but I think it's somewhere in that space where it's like the missing link between Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect. It's like the game that they could have made in that Neverwinter Nights, Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, maybe right up until about Dragon Age Origins. It's exactly that sort of game. Like, I know you're not big on KOTOR, but I know you did at least get to the first planet, right?
Yes,
Terrace?
I did.
I don't know if you remember anything about it, but the first city in Technomancer is, I kid you not, the map structure is set up the same way as Terrace. I don't mean like turn for turn, like where the buildings are. I mean, you know how in Terrace there's like the upper city, which is like the nice part of the city, and then the lower Terrace, and then below that, like the sewers or whatever? They've got the exact same thing, right? Like they've got like the higher part of the city, which is the marketplace, and then they have the slums, and then they have the underworks, and it's a hub world. It's not open world at all. It feels like those old school Bioware games where you get your 2 or 3 main quests in the main area, and then you have to go down to the lower city, and oh, by the way, all the side quests that you happen to get send you along the same path, and then you end up in the underworks. You come back up in the reverse order, returning the quests as you go, and then you just kind of rinse and repeat. It feels a little bit dated compared to open world modern RPGs, but I fucking love it. I think it's exactly that mold of what Bioware was doing in like mid to late 2000s.
This kind of sounds like, at least to me, when Greedfall comes out, maybe we need to have like a special episode of Split the Veil where we end up, like, after we play it, end up talking about that. And I don't know, like, it would be kind of nice to like spotlight some, if you like Bioware, maybe you'd also like this game type of thing.
I think it's. First of all, I would love to. If you're down, are you planning to get Greedfall? Yes.
I really want to. At the same time, I have family coming in the week it's dropping, so I won't even be able to play it until like the week after that. So it's like
Ditto. Yeah. Also, I mean, for me at least, right? Like, I'm gonna play Gears of War. I'm gonna play Greedfall. Those come out the same day, and then like a month. Yeah, and then like a month later, Outer Worlds comes out, and I'm like, good lord.
It's a busy month. It's this, and then I think like April or something. Like I think Cyberpunk and Animal Crossing come out at similar times, so that's gonna be like the month for me.
Yeah. Oh, and then Pokemon's coming out in November as well, which I want to play.
The one that everyone's mad about.
Are they mad about it? Sword and Shield?
Yeah, because it doesn't have all the Pokemon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I don't care about that, but I can see for the hardcore folks that's a big bummer.
Well, okay, yeah, let's make it a I don't want to say date because that's weird, but like a plan where when we finish Greedfall, we can make a Greedfall episode. So.
I totally agree, and I can't say it enough. Technomancer, if you like Knights of the Old Republic, if you don't mind something that feels slightly dated. But you like, Mass Effect, Knights of the Republic, Deus Ex is actually a very good comparison for that game as far as the lore and whatnot. Go play it. It's a must play, I think.
Okay. Well, I guess speaking of good AA games, let's talk about not so great AAA games. Boom.
I like it. Good transition.
Okay.
Or we could also say, speaking of old Bioware, let's talk about new Bioware.
That one works too, and less scathing. So yeah, we're talking about Anthem today, which I say bad Bioware or bad AAA games, but like, I don't know. We're mostly just talking about the Cataclysm because that's at this point it's still going on. I think it has about 2 or 3 weeks left. I can't remember exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like 2 weeks. Anyway, but I guess just checking in to talk about some of the new story bits. The story bits are not done yet, so I will say that. But like we've I don't know, how much content do you think is new story wise? Like maybe like an hour, maybe.
Yeah, if that. I mean, I would say maybe a handful of hours tops. And also just it's been about 6 months, right, since Anthem has come out, and that seems like a lot longer, to be quite honest, because it feels like this game has been through a lot as far as its community and changes and everything like that. And even though we talked about Anthem quite a bit when it came out, it kind of seemed like the right time to kind of dip back in and see, hey, what's going on with Anthem.
Yeah, so I think with that, I kind of like what we did with the first episode. I want to talk about story, talk about the gameplay, and then touch on the community, because I think there's actually been some changes in the community that I want to discuss. So
ditto.
Let's start with story, because I feel like that's what I have a lot.
That's our bread and butter.
It's the bread and butter. So I say we go full spoilers, because there's even a chance that when this goes away, like, no one will see this again, so might as well spoil it.
I completely agree. Yeah, spoilers, and also, it doesn't take very long. I think I did most of it in an evening. If anyone wants to pause this, go play it, and then come back and listen to this.
Oh, yeah, it really does not take a long time. So, I guess, so I played it right when it came out. I think you played it like a week or two after that. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say what I remember, and then you can interject with other pieces. Like we did, because we've actually just kind of finished another run through of Anthem for streaming. I don't remember the order in which these things happen. I just have like little pinpoints of things I wanted to talk about, so keep that in mind. But okay, so when you load up the game and you haven't done any of the Cataclysm story yet. Grandmaster Adams, who if you don't remember him by name, he's the guy that I made fun of that said he like smoked weed all the time. He comes back, and
it's also Casey Hudson. I mean, I'm just adamant
he looks
that
like
is
Casey
exactly
Hudson.
Casey Hudson.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like him, but it does look like him. But so I guess Casey Hudson comes back and is like, "Hey, there's some strange things going on. Can you check it out?" And then you go your first story mission, and you're really looking up to see what the Dominion are doing. Because what's his name? Harkin is back, and Harkin is the guy that exploded Freemark, if I'm remembering the names correctly, who somehow survived, which they never really talk about how he or really the other Dominion survived. That's like a glaring error in my mind.
Harkin was really underdeveloped or just underexplained up until this point. Like, I remember at one point, maybe in our story review episode, we were talking about how, like, it almost felt like Harkin was the Monitor, the way that they referenced the Monitor and Harkin in that event, all as one thing. But in any event, yeah, Harkin was the doctor behind it.
I honestly thought Harkin died, because that makes sense to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, there's also in between the Cataclysm and when Anthem came out, they released a new stronghold that was like Harkin's laboratory. So I'm like, oh, he's dead, and we finally found his laboratory, and he did some crazy shit that's now finally come out. Okay, cool. That's something we're doing. But no, he's apparently alive. So there's a couple missions. There's like 2 or 3 squished together. Like you looking for Harkin. One thing I wanted to point out is that the very first mission you do at the Cataclysm. I forgot what the actual goal is, but I guess I want to talk about Grandmaster Adams, because for once, and unlike when you meet him with the Urgoth, he seemed serious about his job. And I guess me coming back into the any Anthem story mission for the first time, that was kind of refreshing to me. Like, oh, maybe the tides had turned. Maybe just maybe people have taken their job seriously, and there won't be some terrible jokes. It kind of, I will say overall, I think the story did better than a lot of the base. Like, I don't think it got up to Faye at the Wall level. I think that's Anthem's best still, but I don't think it was like, you know, the Dax level. You know, I think it was up there, but it's still room for improvement at least. So what was your up to getting Harkin? Did you have any comments on that?
I think you just kind of described it perfectly as far as that sort of like good, better question mark. Like that is kind of how I felt. I was really going in trying to gear myself up for this is going to be better, like have an open mind, like try and stow all those feelings and all those frustrations that I had with the story before, like just put that in a box and go in fresh and like, okay, Anthem, like I'm ready for you to shut me up and prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. And it just really wasn't there, at least early on. I think there were a couple of scenes where I thought, okay, this is a little more meaty. I'm kind of interested. I'm intrigued at least. But at least early on, my initial reaction, like you said, up to getting Harkin was underwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, this is still kind of more like non-cutscene scenes and radio chatter over the missions. Like, this is still mainly where the story's coming from. So I was like, all right.
So if I could also say one thing. So I'm playing the first mission and listening to the radio chatter because I was playing on my own. And, Grandmaster Adams is being all serious and like, oh, thank God, there's no, like, one-liners, whatever. And then he mentions the Urgoth. And then Faye goes, oh, you didn't tell me about that. And then he just goes on, and that's it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't remember that clearly, but that makes sense, yeah.
As soon as that happened, I was like, you were so close. But yeah, it was one of those, like, how did she...
They didn't need I think it's frustrating because it reeks of something where somebody thinks that they are helping by weaving in, like, an explanation for how Faye knows. Like, you don't have to explain that. Just we can assume that Faye was told about it off camera somewhere else. Like, we don't need that line thrown in there.
All I need, let's pretend that they really wanted that scene. If Faye goes, wait, you didn't tell me that. Wouldn't it have been great to then be able to go to Faye and Faye's like, why didn't you tell me about this extremely important things? Are we not partners? And just have like a little conversation about that. That would have been so juicy and good. And Anthem's like, no, you don't want feelings in your looter shooter. No, Anthem, I do want feelings in my looter shooter because I don't like looter shooters.
Right, exactly.
I feel like that should have been a bigger deal than it was. Not like one of those like sitcom dramas, like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you forever, but more just like, hey, why didn't you tell me about this? Like, I'm your cipher.
Yeah,
this does not have to come up. You know, that would have been nice. But I will say that's probably my second biggest grievance on the Cataclysm. So you're playing. Eventually, you do capture Harkin, and so Harkin's supposed to be this big, bad, scary guy. Like, he is the leader of the Dominion, or I don't know if he's the leader, but they make it out like he's the leader. I don't quite know the lore of this world very well. But I guess when you actually get to capture him and you get to talk with him, what were your thoughts on Harkin?
So first of all, Harkin's weird. But before we get to Harkin being weird, I do also want to. I think this happens before you capture Harkin. Is when you're going out. I guess on maybe the first mission or the second one. Casey Hudson, Grandmaster Adams, is there's radio chatter, and there's this thing where they keep going like the Dominion are fighting themselves.
Oh yeah.
It looks like the Dominion are fighting themselves. Wait a minute, I think the Dominion are fighting them, and I'm like, okay, like Jesus Christ, I get it. That's your big thing for the storyline, and that's not all there is. There is more than that. But I just remember that also from the first mission going like, Jesus Christ, okay, like it's supposed to be this big shocking thing that the Dominion are fighting themselves.
Yeah.
Other than that, Harkin. Yeah, I thought Harkin was really weird. I don't know if it was the mocap or if it was just the decisions made by the actor or what they were asking from him. He just seemed really creepy, and I don't think it was an intentional creepy.
Yeah,
I just think he was off-putting in some weird way.
Yeah, Harkin... What like the words you're using to describe Harkin is creepy and strange and off-putting. Seems like perfect for a villain, but I think I agree with you, and we both mean that in a way where I don't think it was intentional, and I don't like it. It's
right.
I know voice acting can be a lot. Like it could depend on the director. Can be a lot. So I'm going to say like the voice performance. I think kind of threw it off to me because something about the way the guy talks is strange to the point of it I almost want to say amateurish. I don't know how to really put it into words. It's just like, oh, freelancer. It's like it sounds like I would do that, you know? I don't know.
It's distracting. I think it takes you out of the immersion of it. Like I'm trying to pay attention to what this guy is saying and who his character is, and the actual performance, the overall performance of it takes you a little bit out of it. I feel like what they were trying to go for was, here's a guy who you need to work with. You don't trust him. It's obvious that you don't trust him. We don't expect the player to trust him, but you have to, and maybe you are a little bit unnerved about him, but there's also something kind of smooth and kind of cool about him, and that just did not land.
Yeah.
Right? There were some points where he's clearly meant to come off as a somewhat obviously he's got some weird powers, which kind of don't make any sense. And there's supposed to be an element of like, he's this cool character that you don't want to trust, but you have to work with him. None of that was working. Yeah. He just came off weird. And like, why does his voice sound like that? And obviously this guy is not trustworthy.
Yeah. In a way, I think there's also like a bit of that, I'm almost going to call it Anthem humor, where like they tried to be funny. They tried to be cute. They tried to be something and it just didn't land. And Harkin does a lot of that, where like he'll say like he'll try to like rib you like in that kind of like stereotypical villain way, like, oh, we're not so different, you and I. But like it's just I don't know, it felt like your creepy uncle, and I just didn't like it. You know what I mean? Like it was weird. Yeah, I guess Harkin didn't land for me. I think it would have been a lot better if they just would have stopped all of the, I guess the humor. I don't think Anthem does humor well. I don't know what happened, but like they just need to stop with those one-liners. And like, I almost want to say they should go the Solus approach, where like he doesn't talk much, and I feel like that would have been better. Just not. It
would have been actually so much better. You know what it honestly feels like to me? Like again, what they're going for is he's this dangerous, kind of mysterious guy that you don't want to work with, but you have to because the fate of everything. Blah blah blah. That's what they were going for, but that's not what it feels like. You know what it feels like? It feels like the freelancers stopped at a stoplight and a dude jumped on top of their javelin and is trying to window wash the visor. Oh. And like, do you know what I mean? Like this guy is like, you fired him and he keeps showing up to work and he's just sort of like, you need me. Like there's no, like, bro, I don't need you really. I'm the one flying out there doing all the work. You just seem like you're interjecting yourself into the situation that doesn't really require you.
Jordan, that was the weirdest fucking thing that is completely true, and I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. He is exactly that weird homeless guy on the street corner that is trying to tell you that he's the incarnation of Jesus, and you're like, please.
He's doing this thing, and he's just like, yeah, don't we have a partnership now? This is like a weird partnership.
We
and it's
just
like,
met!
Bro, I don't want to be your partner. Why are you talking like that? Where do you keep getting apples from?
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that scene. So, because we've been alluding to it. So, there's at one point, you're asked to go to the jail where he is, and Harkin is gone. You're like, oh, this Fucker disappeared. Of course he would. And so you're talking. Bryn shows up again, which that's the whole thing. But she's like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I just lost my marbles, you know. And then he just reappears. And you're like, where the fuck did you go? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. He's telling you about something he invented that it just explains the way why you can... We'll talk about Vara and the Cataclysm in a second. But why you can go into the Cataclysm of Vara's mind and blah, blah, blah. And Brent takes an apple from him that he's eating. He keeps talking, and then there's another apple in his hand, which I will say, the first time that happened, I'm like, oh no, they forgot to take out the apple out of the cutscene. I thought it was a glitch, honestly, and not a feature. So, he essentially, it's shown that, like, he can just pull things out of nowhere, and he can go and leave whenever he wants, and you don't know how he's doing it. And that's kind of the setup so far. And I will say that is interesting, but because this guy just seems like the crazy homeless guy that somehow got into your home and is eating all your apples, and you don't know where he's even getting apples because you didn't even own apples. He's just there, and I don't know what to do with it. So I left that cutscene slightly intrigued, but mostly confused. So I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Pretty much, yeah. I left it confused also, and I wasn't really that intrigued. I just kind of felt like, from a lore standpoint, they just introduced... I mean, like, is it magic? Like, does he have magic powers? Is that what we're talking about? Is this some weird form of technology? There's no good explanation for why he should be able to do that, and there's no attempt to explain it, and there's also no allusion to the fact that it's not being explained amongst any of the characters. Like, there's no conversation where you come out of there and you, like, pull, you know, whoever, Faye or just any of the other characters.
Bryn, who was there, you know?
Right, or like, how the hell did he just do that? Is this like, what do we know about teleportation abilities in this world? No, there's no conversation about it.
I will say that, I think I remember something like the Dominion are the only ones with teleportation power, so it's a big fucking deal that that the Dominion are able to do that, and he's able to do that. So the fact that, like, no one's worried that, like, the Dominion could just pop in and out of jail whenever they want, that's not a big deal. Grandmaster Adams is like, doesn't come up to you like, holy fuck, did you see that? This guy has to die. No, none of that. Yeah, again, there's no breakdown of that scene emotionally, which maybe is a big part of Anthem's problem. But
right,
it was really bizarre. Yeah. And then Bryn shows up, and then when you go talk to her, she's like, hi, freelancer, do you want more jobs? No, I want to talk about why. No. God.
Yeah, it also kind of begs the question, like, if that Dominion technology works inside of Fort Tarsis,
why don't they come in?
How come Harkin, why did Harkin just, like, zip in whenever he wanted?
Yeah, I don't get it. And like, it's like, if he has some, like, big extravagant plan, I would love to hear it, because I don't have trust in the story that they could come up with something interesting or that makes sense. So I almost feel like maybe this... Okay, I think that scene could have worked given 3 changes. 1, Harkin is just a different personality. 2, we have some sort of breakdown of the scene emotionally. 3, this actually comes after Anthem has kind of redeemed themselves a little bit, like story-wise. This isn't something you pull out of your ass right after people just panned your story. You know what I mean? You need to go down to some basic story and have that be good, and then try to build up your reputation. Doing this, I don't believe you're going to do it right, and so far nothing has proven me wrong, you know?
I agree with that entirely, and I think it kind of goes back to that initial expectation that I had, or maybe not expectation, but just hope, right? The idea that, like, this could be, when I go to talk to Grandmaster Adams, there might be some really impressive cutscene, there might be something that just totally resets the standard of what the storytelling is going to be like, and that just wasn't there. It was an incremental improvement, if that, with at times even a couple of stuff that just made you shake your head as much as the main story did.
Yeah. So let's get into the Vara part. So at one point, and I'm still not sure if I'm okay with games doing this or not, when, like, you know something, your protagonist doesn't, but that's a whole other issue. At one point, there's just, like, a random cutaway, and it's a bunch of Dominion Storm Javelins, Valkyries, whatever they're called, mostly in a circle, and then there's 2 in the middle. There's one with, like, a lance, and we will find out her name is Vara, and she's talking to some unknown man. And, like, they have, like, some sort of, like, romantic connection, which, me being the sappy, is like, ooh, I'm interested in that part more than anything else. But that's never going to come up again. Anyway, but she then, like, stabs this thing. I don't know what it is or what it does. I still don't know. And essentially that's the story of how, like, the actual Cataclysm as the gameplay comes about. Vera, like, becomes one with something. I think it's the Anthem, kind of like how the, What's-His-Face did. Which, like, there's a whole bunch of questions lore-wise that I don't know the answer to. Maybe they're explained, but I'm still kind of confused by it. Like, how did no, never mind. I can't even get into it. Anyway, but, so she creates, like, this little bubble of reality, and you have to go in and fight her. I guess I want to talk about Vara a bit, because I liked Vara up until Harkin started telling us about Vara.
Well, yeah, let's talk about Vara Brahm a lot, actually, because before we get to that scene, that's when we learn her name is Vara Brahm, I think, but before that, she's being referenced as the Spear, which is like she's replaced the Monitor, right? Mm-hmm. That's the way it's framed initially. Mm-hmm. It's like, Monitor's dead, but now the Dominion's being led by the Spear, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm not crazy here when we talk about that scene, and also what immediately preceded that scene. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, that cutscene triggers while you're talking to Harkin, and you have the ability. No, not the ability. I think the conversation goes this way one way or another. Harkin mentions Grandmaster Adams right before that cutscene, right?
I think so.
And if I'm not mistaken, what he's getting at is that, why did Grandmaster Harkin pick you to go do this? Why not go do it himself? And the answers that you can give basically both amount to, because he didn't trust himself to do it. Uh-huh. What I was getting the entire time when Grandmaster Adams was talking about the Spear and Vara Brahm was just like, oh, he's double crossing us, right?
Oh.
Right? Like him and Vara. Like, I'm sitting there going, like, it sounds so obvious to me in my head. And the person that she talks to in that scene, who's masked, that's Grandmaster Adams, right?
I can't remember his voice. So you know what? Hold on. Maybe we cut this out.
To me, it might just be like me reading too much into it, but I had this feeling of like, okay, is this the reveal that Grandmaster Adams is on the other side, or is it supposed to be vague? Because to me, it's really obvious.
Give me...
And I just... Are you going to pull it up and check it out again?
Yeah, I got to find it, though. Okay, hold on. Oh, fuck me, Jordan. That does sound like Grandmaster Adams. Oh, no, that's probably the clever twist that they want to do. Oh, you're fucking right. Jordan, I didn't even think about it, but you're so right.
It's him, right? It's totally Grandmaster Adams.
That sounds a lot like him.
Yeah.
Does she really not see... I don't want to, like, listen to this anymore. It does not have subtitles. So, but that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I know it doesn't, Caitie, but it's Anthem at this point. So...
That is okay.
I want to clip that. I want to clip that sound that you just made as an ISO, and so every time, like, we don't do this. We don't have a soundboard or anything, but I've always loved podcasts that have a soundboard. So anytime we're complaining about Anthem, we just have that sound clip of Caitie going.
Okay, I want to put it out there that this is technically a theory because the story is not finished yet and we don't know. But man, when you come into that mindset of the guy that she's like having an emotional moment with being Grandmaster Adams, dude kind of sounds like him. And
yeah.
Jordan, one, thank you for being the smart half of this podcast to think of that, because I think I was on my phone texting, to be quite honest, when this is going on.
Oh, I don't blame you. There were points where I was doing the same. I was like, good Lord.
I trying to wrap my head around, because like when you first meet him, he like doesn't like the Dominion, you know, and
I can't remember what it was specifically in one of the first conversations that tipped me off. And I think maybe it was the first time he was talking about the Spear. I'm not entirely sure, but there was something in his voice where I was just like, oh, this is close to him for some reason. He's like, this is something close to the chest for him. And immediately I just kind of got the vibe that like...
I'm with the dumbass freelancer who was like, oh, but Harkin destroyed Freemark 20 years ago or whatever. So that he was there. So that's what he has a vendetta against. So, but like, why would he join? Like, yeah, that motivation makes sense to me, at least. Why would he join the Dominion afterwards?
I think Adams, it's literally just he's got this connection to Vara Brahm, and that's it.
Oh God. I need a drink.
I think they might be trying. I think they might be trying to do the not star-crossed lovers, but opposite sides of the war, their love, that kind of stuff.
I guess. But then how did he survive? Because all the other Valkyries. Hold on. At the end of this cutscene, don't they all get swallowed up? Well, let me watch. Let me kind of scroll through this again.
You might. Yes.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Yeah. No. He totally gets the guy she's talking to gets swallowed up.
Well, then how do we know? Well, I guess you're right. But then when did that happen? And is it possible that they got out of whatever Dyson sphere dimensional loop that is?
Maybe. Okay, here's another question that I don't remember. Have we seen Grandmaster Adam since then? Okay, well let's without replaying it, which we don't have the time or energy to do, and without going into extensive research, that is a theory.
It's a theory, yeah, that's it.
But let me tell you, I can believe it. But God, I hope you're wrong, just because that breaks my brain a little.
Yeah, so let's just say that from what we understand right now, and sort of browsing through some of the cutscenes again, it's not entirely clear. It's plausible, but it's just a theory. Because at the end of that scene, they all get sucked into that thing. And it's a little dicey as to where Adams ends up on the timeline after that.
Yeah. So okay, let's pause on that as a thing, because that's a whole nother discussion. But Vara herself. So I was talking with someone on my Discord channel, and they were annoyed with Vara, saying that it just sounds like the Monitor 2.0. It's just someone who has some belief and is ready to die for it. And it basically does the exact same thing. We just need a villain for the catalyst. Here you go. Here's Vara Braum. To which I was like, oh, please keep playing, because you later find out that Vara Braum is quite literally the sister of the architect.
Mm-hmm.
That felt unnecessary to me. I don't it's one of those things where if it was a nod to look, we know that we just needed a villain, and here you go as the sister of the architect. Fuck it, there you go. I get that. At the same time, it's one of those I don't know, bad movies where we need another villain who's basically the same villain, but we killed him off accidentally, so now what do we do? Oh, I don't know, a sibling does the exact same job. Let's just do it.
I don't have any defense for it. I guess maybe the rationale somewhere is that Bioware has had a theme kind of similar to Star Wars, that it's always kind of an epic family affair kind of a thing, but there needs to be more creativity into it than that. When neither one of those characters has really been expanded upon in a thorough enough way, and you just throw them out there, they have basically the exact same aims. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this is his sister. It's you kind of need to differentiate a little bit more than that.
Yeah. I also think, so I will say, going back a little bit further to when we're talking about the Neil Blomkamp movie, I think the plot of that was supposed to be, by reading a couple of lore posts from people, was that apparently in the original, I don't know if it's the original script or if it actually made it into Anthem, but they're the architect, what was at one point the architect's daughter was some important figure in the lore of Anthem, and she got sucked into whatever and did something. But I don't actually know if that's the current canon of Anthem. At one point, that was the script. So part of me wonders if, maybe was Vara supposed to be his daughter, and then they had to rework the story? Oh, now it's his sister? I don't know.
Also, you said the architect twice. You mean the Monitor, right?
Fuck!
I think the first one I let slide, and I'm like, wait, architect? What are we talking about? The Monitor, right? But that's the problem, is his name is the goddamn Monitor. They revealed his name, by the way. They revealed his name in the Cataclysm as well. I can't remember it, because who gives dick all now?
Oh, fuck. Sorry, I hit my mic for everyone listening at home. Now I have to look it up.
Yeah, they revealed his name. His name is something, Ned, whatever. And it's just
Ned.
Okay, great.
His name is Ned.
His name may as well be Bob the fucking Builder. His name is the Monitor.
Wow, the Anthem wiki just don't give a shit, huh? Alright.
And nobody's bothered to update it.
Yeah, it says not been updated. Name?
Yeah, I know, because I know Harkin definitely revealed it.
Yeah, I think you're right, because his last name's Braum, but I don't remember.
Yeah, but I mean, that just goes to show you, like, it really doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
And we said that. We said that in the pre-release coverage. That I think you said it actually. Like, okay, his name is quote unquote the Monitor, but that's like his unofficial title. He's going to have an actual name, which he did finally in the Cataclysm DLC, if you want to call it DLC. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's more testament to the fact that these characters are so underwhelming that even when we're finally given more backstory on them, it's like, it feels like too little, too late.
Yeah. And here's the thing, we actually kind of liked the Monitor at the very first cutscene with him, and then everything after that was like, because like he just...
I agree.
So like,
yeah.
There's a lot of characters in this game that we could have cared about, but they decided to just, to care about a character, you really have to, I guess, connect with what they're feeling. And if you don't tell us what they're feeling, hey bro, we're not going to connect with it. That's like the rules.
and I do also, I mean, I don't know, we keep saying this a bunch of different times when we talk about Anthem, but I'm not convinced that this is all just, bad decision making when it comes to creative decisions. It feels a lot more like, because there was a somewhat solid basis for some of these characters, but there wasn't execution on it, that at some point, in the last 18 months, from what we know, they just had to take a butcher knife to everything that had to do with this game, including the story.
Yeah.
Like, we're not gonna have enough time to put these scenes in here. We may have even wrote them. There may even be written scenes that give us something to care about when it comes to the Monitor, or even Vara Brahm, and the timeline has just gotten so shrunken down where they're still having to do it, and they're just having to cut and cut and cut, and they just have to ship something out.
Yeah.
As soon as possible, which really sucks because then the quality just gets worse and worse.
Yeah. So this was something that I think if I didn't say it on stream, I know I said it somewhere, or on a podcast, or I don't know what. But like I do think that if the story of Anthem improves, we're not going to see it until like well over a year, because what they by the time they were able to get feedback on what they had written, like they were probably all working on the Cataclysm stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Yes, we talked about in our Anthem review episode that Rochelle Neal was already back in the booth.
Yeah, probably recording stuff for the Cataclysm.
Exactly. Yeah. So totally right.
Yeah, it's if stuff improves, and if they have time to improve stuff, because I think you also bring up a good point. Like they because we'll get to this in a minute. Like the gameplay stuff, like that's where the Cataclysm stuff really shines. And that's probably what they've been focusing on. So yeah, probably a lot of money went more towards there than it went to the story stuff. So they probably don't have time to do the cool scenes that we want. But I almost wish that if that is true and they don't have the time and money to make all of these interesting scenes, then I wish they kind of leaned into it a little bit more, where it's kind of like a B movie type of thing, where they, instead of alluding to anything that would need emotional thing, you just have big, cool, blowing up battle scenes. Just like, it's thoughtless, but it looks fun. Just let us do that. Like, I don't need Bioware to have a big brain thinky game. Just do something fun. Have someone get cut in half. I don't care. Just make it fun.
Yeah.
So, like, if I maybe this is something they're going to do, but if they don't have time to do it well, do something fun. I guess that would be if I was working there, that would be my suggestion. And maybe that's what they're trying to do, and maybe it like didn't work out that well. I don't know, but I guess that's where we are in the story. Is Cataclysm. There's like a big bubble of Vara's mind or whatever, and we have to go in there and we defeat Vara. And then we recently discovered, because there has been some story updates going, I think like every 2 weeks. So I think actually this is the second week, the fourth week or whatever. So we'll have some story update this week, or I think even tomorrow. But we found out that the Cataclysm, this doesn't make any sense. I thought a Cataclysm had to be like a person connected to the Anthem or whatever, and then they make a bubble of reality. Apparently, it's not connected to Vara, so when we defeat her, it doesn't, like, explode. It's actually the staff she had.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So we have to, we have to defeat this, we have to get the staff out of this impenetrable fortress somehow, and then we're going to finally end the Cataclysm. And I think this is just them trying to explain, like, why you can go into the Cataclysm and defeat Vara all of these amount of times.
But the Cataclysm's not over.
Yeah, like, honestly, I think it actually would have worked better if they just would have pretended that there's, like, an echo of Vara. Vara's dead, but somehow maybe she's still alive, rather than just saying, oh, it's the spear! That's it!
Yeah. On that note, I have to say, like, so people understand who maybe don't play Anthem or they haven't just played the Cataclysm. This story beat happens where you get this cutscene that shows Vara Brahm sort of connecting, using the Anthem of Creation to create this Cataclysm, and then you have a mission, essentially, like a repeatable, not quite open world mission, but basically, where you then have to fly around through all of the turbulence or the sort of, what's it called? I guess it's just a turbulence,
the storm,
right?
Yeah.
The storm that's sort of like doing damage to your suit, and then like getting into these safe bubbles, fighting a bunch of enemies, keeping the protection up while you're doing that, and then eventually you get to Vara Brahm and you have a boss battle, which is pretty fucking tough. But then, as you say, if you defeat her, like, Cataclysm's not over.
Yeah.
So I really had this moment of like, is that it? Am I done? No, I'm not done. This is an ongoing thing, so I guess I'm not done. So what do I do? Do I wait? What happens now? I just didn't know. I didn't know what I had done or what I hadn't done, and I was just so like, all right, Anthem, man, like, just I'll see you next week. I just don't know. I don't know if I should just go ahead and just. I don't know if I should just be fully disappointed or if I should just keep up with this attitude of like, I guess we'll just wait and see. We'll just wait and see. Like, I guess we'll just wait and see. And maybe, I don't know. I guess we're still in wait and see mode. But at this point, it's getting to be kind of, I'm starting to feel kind of silly. Like, I think there's a certain amount of patience and just like leeway that you have to give to the game development process. And that's what we said all along, that Anthem was probably going to develop over the course of 6 months, 18 months, 2 years, whatever the case is. But at this point, to me, the improvement is pretty small and incremental. I'm sitting here going like, okay, come on. I'm really just, at this point, I'm just being patient to show people how patient I am, aren't I? Like, that's really what this is about, right? I don't want people to think that I'm being judgy of the game, because I think logically we can assume I do not foresee a world where 2 years from now we say that Anthem was a great game.
Now, I'll say, remember No Man's Sky came out in 2016. Apparently that had an update this year that was like, made everyone like it again.
That's true, but the problem is I never played No Man's Sky at all.
I mean, me too, so what am I saying? But like, I'm just saying that happened with No Man's Sky. And that had, I would argue, an even worse Fallout. So I think it is possible that Anthem could still undig itself out of the shit. With the golden shovel, Twin Peaks, but I don't, I don't like. Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot longer. And at that point, I think a lot of people like. I still think it's fine to be disappointed, because right now it is disappointing. But I guess I wouldn't call it dead. You know what I mean?
No, not dead, because, I mean, look, to talk about some of it, right, when I was back in playing this stuff, I sort of reminded myself of why I like the gameplay again. Gameplay loop is still fun. I like running around in my Colossus, hitting stuff with my shield and using flamethrower and, like, smashing down on people. I can literally just do that mindlessly for 30 minutes, an hour, a couple of hours, and not get bored. And that's not nothing. It's hard to come up with something that people like to do for that amount of time just because it's kind of fun to run around and blow shit up. There is something to that. They achieved a certain amount of success with that. I liked that one scene that we talked about. Granted, it's really just kind of that one scene, but when that scene came up with Vara Brahm doing the ritual or whatever she did to create the Cataclysm, I was like, oh, production value. Like, oh, cinematics. Like, I leaned forward. I liked that. I was interested in it. You mentioned, they tease this tiny little piece of a storyline where it seems like there's this romantic subplot between her and this guy who may or may not be Grandmaster Adams. And that's sort of at the heart of this conflict. I'm like, oh, I like that. That's interesting. That's like some interesting story. There are little bits of it that I did enjoy, but it's not nearly enough to sort of live up to what all of our expectations are for a Bioware game.
I will say, like, to add on to that, like, I actually do really like the Cataclysm stuff, because I guess for people who haven't played and don't want to play, the cycle is you go in, you do the Cataclysm stuff, and every week they've added like a new puzzle, and they're like the goal is to get the highest score, and there's actually like leaderboards. You can see who has the highest score and all sorts of stuff, and so you and 3 of your friends, or I think I think you could do it solo. I've never actually tried, to be honest. It would be very hard to do so, I will say. But you just find little secrets and little things. Like, they have all sorts of, like, little hidden puzzles around the map they have. So it's kind of fun to try to, like, go in there every time and try to find a new secret to add on to your score. And, like, when you're done, you get crystals, which the crystal system's a little bit strange. I don't even want to get into that. And they have a seasonal store. Oh, we should talk about Herschel. Okay, hold on. Let me finish this, and then I want to talk about Herschel. But they have a seasonal store that you can buy a lot of cool new armor and gear and weapons, and there's a whole bunch of stuff like that. And so the gameplay is you try to get a high score, and then you spend it on something cool. And I like that, because, like, and so far every week they've had one cool armor set, and I've gotten all of them so far because I like them. So I've been logging in a couple times a week, getting all the crystals, getting the stuff I like at a seasonal store, and I like that. I think that's a good gameplay thing. But yeah, I guess the question on everyone's lips is this ends in about 2-3 weeks. So then what? Is the Cataclysm going to continue? Can you still play that loop? Or is it done? Is it over? And that's kind of what everyone's been worried about, because then, like, as much as fun as this has been, what happens when that no longer exists? You know, you know, what do you play? What do you do? I don't know.
I mean, the idea was that they were going to just have more and more of this, right? Another event and a different thing, but we haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what that is. We knew the Cataclysm was coming for some time.
Yes. So, what happens next? Is it going to be, like, another 3 to 4 months between another cycle? Because that's way too long. Like, I think if you had, like, maybe... because it's about 6 weeks for this one. So if it's 6 weeks and then maybe, like, a week or 2 off, I can get that. But, like, months in between would be brutal. Like, that's unfeasible.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. That makes me think a lot about BioWare's structure as a studio and kind of like what their output capacity is, which I want to touch on. But just before I go on to that, because that's kind of a different rant. Mm-hmm. Did we want to say anything else about gameplay?
Not gameplay, but I do want to touch on Herschel.
Oh, Herschel. Yes, go.
Herschel's the best part of the Cataclysm.
Oh, you're right. Well, I don't want you to be right, but you might be.
So Herschel he's the seasonal storekeeper. So you walk up to him, and it's this guy with a helmet. And, like, it's a weird-looking helmet. You don't know why he has a helmet. Nobody else has a helmet. So, they kind of got some people with weird helmets, but this one's a really weird helmet. So when you're talking with him, it kind of just drops that he has 5 eyes. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? And he talks about, like, oh, you know, I was a researcher doing things, and something fucked up, and now I have 5 eyes. That's why I wear a helmet, because it's kind of gruesome. You don't really want to do it. Also, this frog behind me, and this guy has, like, a monstrous giant frog. That's my old boss. I got 5 eyes. He turned into a frog. He wasn't that great of a guy, but no one else is going to take care of him. So, I mean, I'll do it. Like, that was interesting. That was a good story.
You like the little mini arc? I
like the little mini arc of the frog is this guy's old boss that he thought was kind of an asshole, but, like, he was good to him, so he takes care of the frog. And the dude has 5 eyes. That drew me in more than anything else in the Cataclysm so far. And I don't know what it says about me that some of my favorite characters in this game are the storekeepers.
Well, I gotta say, then I gotta put it this way. Herschel is your Johnny, then. That's your sexy dangerous, because I thought Herschel and that fucking frog were ridiculous. I rolled my eyes so hard, I thought they were gonna just come out the back of my head. I was just like, good lord. Like, it's not a talking frog, but I didn't know what to make of it. I just thought it was just so random, and I thought it was like... It's one of those ideas that, like, it might make sense in a tweet. Like, I've probably had ideas that are more ridiculous than that, and sort of like a what if, wouldn't this be hilarious if, but it's not really hilarious. It's just hilarious if you're joking about it with your friends. That's how I thought of Herschel and the frog.
But they didn't play it up for laughs, though. The guy was just matter of fact. He's like, oh yeah, I got 5 eyes, and this guy's my boss. Like, if they tried to make it jokey, would not have worked. I completely agree. But they deadpanned that shit, and it worked. I appreciate that.
I appreciate your appreciation. It was not bad. I think I just kind of like it what's the word? It washed over me where I was just like, okay, he's got a helmet and his boss is a frog. I'm like, all right, check.
But I found that much more interesting than anything that had happened in the Cataclysm so far. So maybe that's where I'm coming from. But it was like that charmed me, I'll say. I was charmed by it.
it here's one thing I will say. It works better than Harken, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Because Harken is like, are they going for this? Am I supposed to feel this way when I watch Harken? Where I will say at least the gag or the bit of that guy, and he wears a helmet because he has 5 eyes and he's got a frog. It all worked as far as like nothing was out of tune with that song, to use that analogy. Like it played the way it was supposed to play. I don't know if it was my favorite, but at least I think that thing worked the way they thought it was supposed to.
Yes. So yeah.
Do you want to see more Herschel? Is Herschel going to be a reoccurring?
I would like to see more of him. I would like to see him get more and more armor, and he just finds out that this guy just keeps getting terrible luck with with experiments. He has like 6 arms and 3 penises. I don't even know. But yeah, that would be fun. But yeah, that's all I had on Herschel. Well, what you had a rant you wanted to go on, and then I also want to talk about community. So what do you got?
You know, I don't know if it's a rant or what it is, but I really wonder about how much should we expect about BioWare's output? Like, how much is it reasonable for us to assume that they can do as far as new content? How much of what they're running up against is just technology and engine roadblocks? I mean, we've heard a couple of anecdotes about, like, I spend 1 hour working and then 7 hours waiting for something to render or et cetera, or something to upload. Like, okay, I get it. Those are some really tough situations. What's the answer? Like, and I understand for Anthem, maybe this is not it's not feasible. You can't change engines. The game's already made. Like, some of the tools that are being used, like, please tell me that's not what we're talking about with Dragon Age 4. Like, how long does that have to go on before someone says this is not a tenable solution? Because when we talk about the problem of the Cataclysm is going to be over and what else is coming out after that, if you can't make content fast enough to have new content for a game that is about new content coming out continuously, then why the hell did you guys make this game? Like, how can that be your model if that's not sustainable? Either you can get that content out in a timely enough fashion, or you should have made something else.
Well, I would say that I wouldn't mind if there were months in between updates if the updates were permanent. You know what I mean?
Right, that's true.
So, like, the fact that they have seasonal updates, I think, is a shot in the face. And that's a terrible, terrible idea.
Yeah, it's just interesting. Like, I just wonder, like, does something culturally need to change at BioWare? And I understand there's been a lot written and a lot reported about sort of what the environment is in BioWare, and some of that seems like it might be related to workload, but I don't know that getting more lax with people necessarily is going to help in the long run. It kind of seems like they might need some more discipline in addition to needing some more associate empathy, right? Those two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. If you could actually focus people on something specific and the direction is good and the leadership is clear, then I don't think there's anything wrong with tasking people to capacity, right? Like, if you're tasked to capacity, that means you're using your full day, you're busy, but you're not tasked beyond capacity. You're not having to work overtime all the time. You're not having to work outside of a 40-hour week. I think sometimes people can feel more frustrated even when they're not at capacity because they always feel like they're trying to catch up to something because the direction and the plan wasn't clear. Mm-hmm. So you end up having too much downtime, and then you end up having to crunch because there was a period of 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever it was, where your pipeline for your department and your team wasn't clear. So in all honesty, your team was probably underutilized, and then you have to overutilize in a very condensed time period, and that makes people feel very burned out, mm-hmm. even though your studio might even be overstaffed if you really ran the numbers correctly. Mm-hmm. And so I think that to me is one of the things that can be the cause of not being able to produce content quickly enough in a pipeline. Never worked for a video game studio. I'm kind of using general production management terms here, but that's one of the things that I think might be happening for BioWare. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder, like, how do they fix that? I don't know, because I don't work with any of their tools or any of their teams, and I don't know anything that has to do with actually running a video game studio, but there's got to be a way to fix that.
Mm-hmm. And who knows? Like, maybe they do have something lined up and we just haven't heard about it. But, like, yeah, I know. I think the couple of days, weeks, however long it is, in between Cataclysm and the next thing are going to be very telling about what the direction of this game is going to be. And I think that to, I guess, kind of merge that into the community for Anthem has been more positive than in the last 4 weeks than I think I've ever seen with this game. You know what I mean? Maybe in some of the weeks leading up to when people were actually excited about it and the game wasn't out yet, but like people like to play. You're not seeing people shit on it as much anymore. Like you have people have their complaints, that's fine, but they're actually being constructive with their complaints, which is huge. It's just absolutely huge. You know, like that they've really had a lot of positive growths and like the feedback in the community of like, you know, Reddit and Twitter and things I've seen like that. So But you're also starting to get people that are like, hey, it's been 4 weeks. This is a 6-week long thing. What's going to happen afterwards? And everyone's kind of like, oh, yeah, when are,
Yeah.
People are kind of like scratching their chins and being like, yeah, this could be not great. Because like people are having a lot of fun with the Cataclysm. So what are they going to do when the Cataclysm's over? I don't know.
Right.
They don't know either. And people are honestly worried about it. And I think that I can get, well, I understand even if they do have something planned afterwards, why Bioware is silent on it, because maybe if they have an event planned, maybe it's like, it would like spoil the whatever, like the ending of the Cataclysm. Like maybe they'll find out like, oh, the Cataclysm will always be here. Isn't that great? Woo! Like, you know, they could pull some story shit out of their ass to make this permanent. I don't know. So
I mean, at that point, that's all they're doing. So
yeah,
no different.
Mine as well. So like, I kind of hope they do that because that people like this. People want more of it. And I think this is what the game needs. So, yeah, I guess I would be really even interested in like 6 more months or whatever, maybe the 1 year we do another one of this to like talk about what happened afterwards. Because I'm curious. I want to know what happens. I want to know if they have anything else. And I think because, you know, it's been 6 months between Anthem came out and then the Cataclysm. In 6 months, they've only had one event.
Right.
That's not great. If we come back to the year and there's only been one other event,
no, it's not good. That's just it. They need something else, like you said. Either Cataclysm keeps going, or they just need something else. Because otherwise, I don't understand what the model of this game is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost sounds like if that's how it goes, the model to me isn't this is a game you play forever. This is a game you play for 2 weeks out of the year. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if they generate revenue during that time, if people always come in and there's new stuff in the store to buy and it makes money, and also, wait a minute, I'm so glad I just got onto revenue and money making because this is a huge thing that we need to talk about, and I remember jotting down this note in preparation for this episode. They haven't released sales numbers on units sold. Caitie, where do you think Anthem ranks this year for sales?
I'm going to say maybe not great.
Top 5 this year.
What?
It is, according to the NPD numbers, and I've always questioned the NPD numbers because a lot of what they do, I think they're now starting to take some of the digital sales, but for a long time the knock on them was that they only do physical sales. Anthem is the top 5th best-selling game this year.
So why haven't they released the numbers?
The sales numbers. Right? Like, why haven't they celebrated? I don't know. Maybe the number was still below what EA's expectations were. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why. But they are, in fact, year to date, they are... Actually, I'm sorry, they're number 4.
Wow.
It's and again, some of these numbers are just kind of weird to me. Like, it really surprises me. It's Mortal Kombat 11, Kingdom Hearts 3, Tom Clancy's The Division 2, Anthem, and then Resident Evil 2. I'm
surprised that Kingdom Hearts 3 is in the top there.
Yeah, a little bit, right? It's a little bit weird. So I will say probably Madden is going to shoot up into the top by the end of the year, and then also Call of Duty. So I think Anthem might get edged out of the top 5, but that is really significant. That is worth talking about. I sent you the link to the NPD thing.
Oh, thank you.
It's just very interesting to me that is actually a top 5 selling game.
Huh.
Which is, you know, it's very interesting. We talk about this narrative of Anthem, and like I can't see it being a great game 2 years from now. In some sense, who gives a shit if it sold well, right? Like, I really, really have my fingers crossed that this game has secretly been more financially successful than anyone has given it credit for. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, Caitie, fucking bravo EA, bravo Bioware, I don't give a fuck. If this is the revenue boost that Bioware needed to make sure that they have all the money that they need for Dragon Age and eventually when they get back to Mass Effect, I don't care. It's a resounding success to me.
I mean, I guess, but... I mean, yeah, that would be weird if, like, Anthem was designed to kind of be the redheaded stepchild where, like, people play it and people pour money into it, and it's kind of like the weird Frankenstein monster that lets the other two live. Huh. But, like, they haven't released the numbers, though, so surely it must have... like, is that a thing? Okay, would you hide the numbers even if you oversold it?
Maybe. I mean, look, at this point you could, if EA was very savvy, and I don't know that they are very savvy, they're probably at least a little bit savvy because I'm sure there's lots of smart people that work there, but you could say, look, everybody knew that Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a big ticket item because they did talk about it quite a bit, and then there was this frustration from people saying, you already made all this money, you're charging microtransactions, blah, 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 like you're greedy. Maybe they feel like if they let that narrative hang out there that maybe Anthem wasn't doing so hot, maybe the hardcore fans are more eager to buy microtransactions as a way of supporting the game.
So
I mean that's kind of a stretch, but I don't know. Why wouldn't they release the numbers if it's a success?
I mean, I don't know. So then surely it's not, right? Unless maybe it was even a PR thing where, like, people like, Anthem was a financial success? What the fuck? You know, like, maybe something like that, but, like...
Right. You know what? Let's try something here. Let's see if we can extrapolate. The Division 2 units sold. Did Ubisoft release? Like, if anyone else released it, at least we can know, or especially if we pick one of the ones underneath it, right? Like, if we know how much units Resident Evil 2 sold, and we know...
Oh, I see what you mean.
Anthem sold more than that.
Okay. Now, Super Smash Brothers is number 6.
Okay, wait a minute. Resident Evil 2, as of March 1st this year, they released a thing saying that they sold 4 million units.
So,
Anthem has sold more than 4 million units.
How much did they... I thought there was a projection if they...
5 to 6. I think they said 5 to 6. So
it might have underperformed, but it got pretty close then.
I think still the best launch for any Bioware game was Dragon Age Inquisition sold 6 million in like the first month, give or take. And that was the same for it was about that much for Mass Effect 3. And I think Dragon Age Inquisition was slightly more because they talked about it. But okay, so this was in March, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm reading from a GameSpot article. Resident Evil 2 Remake continues to perform well commercially. This game has now shipped 4 million copies globally. Capcom announced in a news release today. This is up from 3 million copies that the game shipped during its first week.
Okay. So I guess from that, it does sound like Anthem performed well in video games, but it underperformed EA's projections.
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense why they didn't release the numbers.
But also, if it sold like 5 million units, give or take, maybe got close to 6, that is a success from a Bioware game. I know that's really tough. I know we talked about how much money that one Star Wars mobile game made in 1 quarter.
Yeah, God.
It's like 50 million or whatever it was. I know it's tough for us to accept this, but that is a success from a Bioware title.
Well, hold on.
Because the most they've ever done is like 6 in a launch period.
Is it like $5 to $6 million or 5 to 6 million units? Because I feel like that's different.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, you're right. It was 6 million units, sorry.
Okay.
However much that translates to, and it's still not as much money as that Star Wars game.
Yeah, the Star Wars game was fucking bonkers. Oh, Jesus.
But yeah, I think that's a really significant point to make, is that Anthem may be more financially successful than we realized, and EA did say multiple times on their investor calls that they anticipate that the real profit from this game is going to be in the long term as a live service. Now, I don't know if that's panning out the way that they hoped, but if they sold, like I said, 5 or 6 million units and they have a pretty decent live services revenue, let's say more than any other Bioware game that's ever happened, Anthem is going to be the highest revenue generating game that Bioware's ever done.
Wow. But I guess if it's one of those things where, like, if that has to be the sacrifice, where it's just a very gross money-making video game and it does its job well, but then they still put out content I like, I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I mean?
That's what I've always said. That's what I said before Anthem came out. That was one of the first things that I said, was that if this is the big money maker for BioWare and it allows them to sort of have money to sort of keep the other things going, the only thing the one little thing, if I was BioWare, I would just be like, please, can we please go back to the Unreal Engine for Mass Effect? Mm-hmm. Can we please just not make it in Frostbite? Because Frostbite seems like it's really time and resource extensive.
Yeah.
But, look, I will contend to anyone that hates Grand Theft Auto Online and the fact that Grand Theft Auto 5 didn't have any DLC because all they cared about was the online. That money paid for Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 has the highest production value of any video game I've ever seen, like by far. And it came from that goddamn GTA Online money.
Wow. Well, I guess this just goes to show that I don't know business.
I was shocked. I honestly could not believe it when I saw this. I go, holy crap, top 5. And by the way, at least of what it says on NPD's number, NPD's US top 10 games list ranked by dollar sales includes full game digital sales from participating publishers. So not sure if that means maybe EA is participating and other people aren't. So maybe their rankings are a little bit higher. I don't know how you might want to interpret that, but it at least says that they are taking digital sales into account. Yeah, so that's just something to consider. All of the gripes that we might have about Anthem, it may be a successful financial game, and honestly, I mean, like, fingers crossed. That would make me nothing but ecstatic, quite honestly, for BioWare as a studio. They really need that win.
Which they just changed offices to a pretty nice looking building, honestly.
Oh, so, it's beautiful. It's one of the best ones in Edmonton.
Yeah, downtown Edmonton. So they definitely got an upgrade, and at the very least, their offices. So I don't think they're doing poorly. You don't move offices to a cooler building, and it's probably way more expensive in the heart of downtown Edmonton if you're doing poorly. So I don't think... I think regardless, I don't... People are saying, like, oh, BioWare's dead. Maybe the content you want from BioWare is dead, I'll say that. But that's BioWare as a company is fine. They're doing great.
I think that given what the data bears out, and I'm a real big person on trying to go based off of evidence, if we extrapolate a little bit off of Resident Evil 2's published sales numbers, and then we pin Anthem as being somewhere between 4.1 and who knows, maybe 5 or 6 million units, that is a semi-successful to really successful launch for them.
Well, could we look up Tom Clancy's The Division 2 and see how many units it's sold?
I was trying to find that out, and I'm not sure if I could find a number. Okay. The Division 2 sold 10 times as many copies on Uplay as the first game.
Okay. Well, I guess with that concludes our 6-month checkup with Anthem, which I know we didn't put like a number on Anthem, but I think like if whatever number we rated Anthem, I would put the Cataclysm stuff at like 1 number plus. Not that I think the story was good, but I do really like the Cataclysm cycle of gameplay. So I guess that's where I would put my rating on Anthem right now. I know it's very vague. But
yeah, I mean, I agree. The Cataclysm storm stuff kind of changes exploration, makes it more fun. I agree. Like, they're actually starting to be a little bit more creative with what they're doing on the gameplay.
Oh, if I could want to interject one gameplay thing, Cataclysm is 100% designed to play with 3 people because playing with randos is fucking miserable, especially when they don't understand the puzzles. Some of the puzzles are like. When you actually sit down and are able to do them, they're actually really not that hard. If you know what to do, they're actually very easy. But if you're going in there for the first time, it's extremely difficult because there's 3 other people with you trying to solve this puzzle who are picking up pieces. So you don't know what pieces there are because like there's 3 other people with pieces in their pockets and you don't know what you have and what you don't. Or other things, sometimes I'll put a piece in its place and they'll go off to get another piece, and then someone has moved it to try and do something else. So even if you know what to do, people just fucking you up. And like, as much as you type, as much as you talk, people have that stuff off because people don't realize there is a text chat anymore. That it's very hard to play with randos because people are idiots.
Okay, so one thing I do want to update on the sales thing. I did find Kingdom Hearts 3. So Kingdom Hearts 3 is second, and they sold 5 million copies in the first week.
Wow.
So they released January 29th worldwide of this year. So they, in year to date for 2019, they are a couple of spots above Anthem. So I assume if they did 5 million in the first week, they're probably in the 7 to 8 range.
Yeah.
Overall, which means, yeah, I think I'm willing to bet Anthem hit 5 million so far this year, and maybe 6.
Wow. Well, now I'm just curious, how did Mortal Kombat get number 1? Because like I didn't even realize that was a game that was coming out, and apparently it's the number 1 selling game of this year.
I mean, it's got to have 2-3 different generational appeals, right? It's just like that ultimate video game name that people understand.
I guess. Like, it came out in April. Literally the only thing I've heard of Mortal Kombat 2 was at the end of the last episode. I played that, like, really terrible clip, and that was from that game.
You're right. You're 100% right. That is the only thing I know about Mortal Kombat 11.
There has to be, like, I know this is true, but, like, little gaming bubbles. And, like, we are just, both you and me are not in any of the bubble that would like or know about Mortal Kombat 11.
No, not at all.
But we know a lot and hear a lot about Greedfall, a little tiny European
right. Indie developed RPG. Yes, well, just as a reminder to everyone, remember that no power is worth your soul.
You actually sound kind of like
Thank you. I'm really proud of the fact that I can do an impersonation of a terrible actor. I don't know what that says about me. Like, so far, I mean, you really think about this, Caitie. My 2 best impersonations are Dragon Age 2 Corypheus, which is the worst Corypheus, and fucking the worst Sub-Zero ever.
Not to, like, even spit in your face, but I don't think the Corypheus one is that great. It's just funny.
Oh, thanks. I'll just stick
You're
to Sub-Zero. I wish I would. No, I'm sorry. That's just too much. I'm laying it on too thick.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, I wish I had the power to be a better voice actor, but no power is with.
Oh, God. Okay, well,
right,
we
Caitie,
better get off of this trail and
oh, man.
go do something else. All right.
That's going to be the new sign-off. Send it to Ratsurao. All right, everybody. No powers with your soul. See you next week.
Well, why don't we test it out? Jordan, where can they find you?
Folks can find me at The Exalted March on YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, and Twitter. Caitie, where can the folks find you?
Ghildirthalen. Just Google it. Everyone but that one Facebook and the Twitter of mine. Or the Tumblr of mine. All right. So with that, no power is worth your soul. Directional.